In the vast expanse of the ancient world, where empires stretched as far as the eye could see, a pivotal moment was on the horizon. Amidst the swirling desert sands, two colossal forces prepared for a confrontation that would echo through the annals of history. On one side, Alexander the Great, the audacious Macedonian who dreamt of a world united under his banner. On the other, Darius III, the last king of the Achaemenid Empire, determined to defend the legacy of his ancestors. This wasn't just a battle, it was a clash of cultures, strategies, and ambitions. Join us on this journey, as we delve deep into the heart of the Battle of Gaugamela, where destinies were forged and the course of history was forever altered. A day of valor, strategy, and epic confrontations that still captivates the imagination thousands of years later. In the closing months of 333 BC, a significant shift in power took place. King Darius III faced a crushing defeat at the Battle of Issus at the hands of none other than Alexander the Great. This wasn't just a military setback, it was deeply personal. Darius saw his wife, mother, and two cherished daughters, Statira II and Drapetus, fall into Alexander's custody. The aftermath of Issus also meant that Alexander now held the reins of southern Asia Minor, what we know today as Turkey. Following this, Darius pulled back, seeking refuge in Babylon. There, amidst its grand walls, he rallied the remnants of his army, remnants that had already tasted the bitterness of battle. But Alexander's momentum was unstoppable. He engaged in the prolonged Siege of Tyre in 332 BC, a grueling conflict that spanned from January to July. His triumph there solidified his grip over the Levant. But he didn't stop. Gaza was next, and its siege further dwindled the Persian forces. The situation grew so dire for the Persians that Bessus, the satrap overseeing Egypt, chose diplomacy over conflict, handing over the keys to his territory without a fight. In the aftermath of his losses, Darius sought a diplomatic approach to halt Alexander's relentless advance. The annals of history, penned by various ancient historians, recount three distinct attempts by Darius to negotiate with the Macedonian conqueror. The first attempt came post the Battle of Issus. Historians from the 1st and 2nd centuries, including Justin, Arrian, and Curtius Rufus, tell of a letter Darius dispatched to Alexander. In it, he demanded the retreat of Alexander from Asia and the release of his captured kin. While Curtius and Justin mention a proposed ransom for the prisoners, Arrian omits this detail. The letter, as described by Curtius, bore an aggressive tone. Alexander, unsurprisingly, rebuffed these demands. Following the fall of Tyre, Darius approached Alexander once more. This time, he dangled the prospect of a marital alliance, offering his daughter Statira II's hand in marriage. He also proposed ceding all territories west of the Halys River. Justin's account is vaguer, not specifying which daughter and only alluding to a part of Darius' realm. Diodorus Siculus, another 1st-century historian, echoes the territorial offer and adds mentions of a proposed friendship treaty and a hefty ransom for the captives. Intriguingly, Diodorus claims Alexander concealed this letter, presenting a fabricated version to his inner circle that better suited his ambitions. Yet again, Alexander declined Darius' overtures. But Darius wasn't done. After Alexander's Egyptian campaign, Darius extended a third, even more generous offer. He lauded Alexander for his gracious treatment of his mother, Sisygambis. He proposed ceding all lands west of the Euphrates, sharing power in the Achaemenid Empire, another marriage alliance with one of his daughters, and a staggering 30,000 talents of silver. Diodorus recounts a moment where Alexander pondered this offer with his confidants. Parmenion, one of his generals, opined, "Were I Alexander, I'd accept and forge a treaty." To which Alexander retorted, "I would too, if I were Parmenion." But Alexander's ambition was clear: Asia could have only one king. He challenged Darius either to surrender or to face him in battle. While the essence of this third negotiation is consistent across historians, the specifics vary. Some, like Diodorus, Curtius, and Arrian, suggest an embassy was dispatched, while others, including Justin and Plutarch, hint at another letter. The proposed ransoms amount also differs, with some citing 10,000 talents and others 30,000. Arrian places this third attempt during the Siege of Tyre, but others associate the second attempt with this timeline. Regardless of these discrepancies, one thing was clear: with diplomacy failing, Darius was gearing up for another showdown with Alexander. Upon wrapping up his endeavors in Egypt, Alexander made his way back to Tyre in the springtime of 331 BC. By midsummer, either July or August, he arrived at Thapsacus. Arrian, the historian, notes an interesting episode here. Darius had stationed Mazias with a cavalry unit of 3,000 men to safeguard the Euphrates crossing near Thapsacus. However, as Alexander's formidable force neared the river, Mazias chose discretion over valor and retreated, allowing Alexander's army an unchallenged passage. After successfully crossing the Euphrates, Alexander made a strategic decision. Instead of taking the direct southeastern route to Babylon, he opted for a northern trajectory. This path placed the Euphrates and the Armenian mountains to his left. The choice wasn't arbitrary. The northern route offered better opportunities for foraging and spared his troops from the intense heat of the direct path. However, as they progressed, captured Persian scouts relayed that Darius had set up camp beyond the Tigris River, seemingly intent on blocking Alexander's passage. But when Alexander reached the Tigris, he found it unguarded. Despite the river's challenges, he managed to cross it. Diodorus offers a slightly different perspective. He suggests that Mazias was tasked solely with obstructing Alexander's passage across the Tigris. The river's formidable current and depth made Mazias believe it was naturally impassable, hence not requiring defense. Additionally, both Diodorus and Curtius Rufus highlight Mazias' strategy of laying waste to the lands Alexander would traverse, a scorched earth tactic. In a twist of cosmic significance, shortly after the Macedonians crossed the Tigris, the night sky was illuminated by a lunar eclipse. Based on historical calculations, this celestial event likely took place on October 1, 331 BC. Undeterred, Alexander led his forces south along the Tigris's eastern bank. For days post their river crossing, Macedonian scouts brought news of a small Persian cavalry unit, roughly 1,000 strong. Alexander, always one for swift action, led a cavalry charge, scattering the Persian riders. While many evaded capture, a few weren't so lucky. These captives revealed a crucial piece of intelligence: Darius was nearby, with his forces stationed close to Gaugamela. The Persian strategy, or perceived lack thereof, in dealing with Alexander's advance through Mesopotamia has been a point of contention among historians and scholars. Many have questioned why the Persians didn't exploit the vulnerabilities of Alexander's extended supply lines or harass his advancing army. Peter Green, a renowned classical scholar, posits an interesting theory. He believes that Alexander's decision to take the northern route was a strategic masterstroke that caught the Persians by surprise. Darius, he suggests, would have anticipated Alexander to opt for the more direct southern route to Babylon, mirroring the path Cyrus the Younger took in 401 BC before his eventual defeat at the Battle of Cunaxa. The evidence for this expectation lies in Darius' tactics, the scorched earth strategy, and the deployment of scythed chariots, seemingly in an attempt to recreate the conditions of the Cunaxa battle. If Alexander had chosen the southern route, the combination of the scorched earth and the intense heat would have left his army malnourished and fatigued, setting the stage for a Persian victory on the Cunaxa plains. When news reached Darius of Alexander's unexpected northern detour, Green theorizes that Mazias might have raced back to Babylon to inform him. Darius, recalibrating, might have then aimed to block Alexander's crossing of the Tigris. However, this plan went awry, possibly because Alexander chose a river crossing nearer to Thapsacus than to Babylon. Adapting to this, Darius might have selected Gaugamela as the most advantageous battleground. On the flip side, historian Jonah Lendering offers a contrasting viewpoint. He applauds the strategic acumen of both Mazias and Darius. In Lendering's assessment, Darius might have intentionally allowed Alexander unobstructed river crossings, herding him towards a battlefield of Darius' choosing, thereby turning the tables and controlling the narrative of the conflict. Darius, having learned from his past mistakes, was determined not to repeat the blunders of the Battle of Issus. 2 years prior, the constricted battlefield had prevented him from fully deploying his vast army, a disadvantage he was keen to avoid. Thus, for the upcoming confrontation, he selected a broad, open plain, ideal for maneuvering his larger forces. To further optimize the terrain for his advantage, Darius ordered his men to level the ground. This meticulous preparation was primarily to ensure optimal conditions for his fleet of 200 war chariots. Despite these preparations, the battlefield's natural characteristics were not particularly advantageous for either side. The landscape was dotted with a few hills, but lacked any significant water bodies that Alexander might have used as a defensive barrier. The season also played its part, with the autumnal climate being dry and temperate. As for the exact location of this historic showdown, the most widely accepted theory points to coordinates 36.36 degrees north 43.25 degrees east, to the east of present-day Mosul in northern Iraq. This hypothesis was put forth by the esteemed archaeologist Sir Aurel Stein in 1938. The precise strength of the Persian army at Gaugamela has long been a subject of historical debate. Some sources suggest that Darius' forces could have numbered well over 100,000. Within this vast army, there were believed to be 25,000 peltasts, which were light infantry. The elite infantry, known as the Immortals, were said to number around 10,000. Additionally, there were 2,000 Greek hoplites, which were a form of heavy infantry, and 1,000 Bactrians. The cavalry, a crucial component of any ancient army, was estimated to be around 12,000 strong. To bolster his forces, Darius also had 200 scythed chariots and a contingent of 15 war elephants. Military historian Hans Delbruck offers a nuanced perspective, suggesting that due to logistical and management challenges, the Persian cavalry might not have exceeded 12,000. He also posits that the Persian infantry would have been fewer in number than the Greek heavy infantry, with the Greek mercenaries in Darius' ranks numbering around 8,000. Other historians have provided their own estimates. Wari in 1998 believed the total force to be 91,000, Harbottle in 2018 estimated it at 120,000, while both Engels in 1980 and Green in 1993 capped it at no more than 100,000. It's worth noting that these are all interpretations, and the true size of the Persian army remains a matter of conjecture. Alexander led a formidable force, a blend of Greek soldiers from his homeland of Macedon, the Hellenic League, and supplemented by Greek mercenaries as well as levies from tributary regions like Paeonia and Thrace. Arrian, the ancient historian, provides specific figures, estimating Alexander's army to comprise 7,000 cavalry and 40,000 infantry. Delving deeper into the composition of this infantry, the consensus among historians is that the Macedonian army had around 31,000 heavy infantry. This number included mercenaries and hoplites from other Greek states, who were held in reserve. In addition to this, there were approximately 9,000 light infantry, predominantly peltasts, with a smaller contingent of archers. As for the cavalry, the collective strength of the mounted forces from the various Greek states under Alexander's command was around 7,000. The stage was set for an epic confrontation. As the day dawned, the Persian forces, led by Darius, were already positioned on the battlefield. Darius had meticulously assembled an elite cavalry, drawing from his eastern satrapies and even incorporating allied Scythian tribes. He had also deployed scythed chariots, having cleared the battlefield of bushes and vegetation to ensure their unhindered movement. Additionally, Darius had at his disposal 15 Indian elephants, accompanied by Indian chariots. However, intriguingly, these elephants don't seem to have played a role in the actual battle, and their subsequent capture in the Persian camp suggests they might have been held back, possibly due to fatigue. In terms of formation, Darius, adhering to Persian tradition, positioned himself at the heart of the battlefield, surrounded by his most elite infantry. To his right, he had the Carian cavalry, Greek mercenaries, and Persian horse guards. The right center was bolstered by the formidable Persian foot guards, known to the Greeks as the apple-bearers or Immortals, flanked by the Indian cavalry and Mardian archers. The cavalry was strategically placed on both wings. On the left, Bessus led a diverse mix of forces, including the Bactrians, Dahi, Aracosians, and several other cavalry units, with chariots positioned at the forefront. On the right, Mazias commanded a similarly varied force, with the Cappadocians and Armenians leading the charge. Interestingly, Curtius mentions that all the archers in this formation were Amarti. Facing this vast Persian force were the Macedonians, split into two primary divisions. Alexander himself took charge of the right, leading his esteemed companion cavalry, accompanied by the Paeonian and Greek light cavalry. The mercenary cavalry was strategically placed, with veterans on the right flank and the rest positioned ahead of the Agrians and Greek archers, who were adjacent to the Phalanx. On the left, Parmenion held command, tasked with holding the line with the Thessalians, Greek mercenaries, and Thracian cavalry, while Alexander aimed to strike the decisive blow from the right. The Macedonian right center was fortified with Cretan mercenaries, followed by Thessalian cavalry and Achaean mercenaries. The Phalanx, a formidable Macedonian infantry formation, was arranged in a double line. Given that they were significantly outnumbered in cavalry and their line was stretched thin, the Macedonians anticipated a potential flanking maneuver by the Persians. To counter this, a second line was established, primarily comprising mercenaries, ready to respond to any flanking threats. As the battle commenced, Alexander made his first strategic move, directing his infantry to march forward in the iconic phalanx formation, straight towards the heart of the Persian line. This advance was tactically designed with the wings angled back at 45 degrees, a formation intended to tempt the Persian cavalry into launching an attack. As the Macedonian phalanxes engaged the Persian infantry in the center, Darius, sensing an opportunity, dispatched a significant portion of his cavalry and some regular infantry to challenge Parmenion's troops on the Macedonian left. But Alexander had a trick up his sleeve, a strategy so unique that it has rarely been replicated in the annals of warfare. As the central infantry units clashed, Alexander, with calculated precision, began to maneuver towards the extreme right flank, flanked by his elite companion cavalry. His objective was clear yet audacious, to pull the Persian cavalry to the extremities, thereby creating a vulnerable gap in the Persian center. This gap would be the Macedonians' gateway to Darius, delivering a decisive and potentially battle-ending blow. The success of this maneuver hinged on impeccable timing and coordination. Alexander's movements were designed to provoke Darius into attacking first, even though Darius, having witnessed the outcome at Issus against a similar Macedonian formation, was hesitant to make the initial move. But with Alexander's forces threatening to move beyond the terrain Darius had meticulously prepared, the Persian king was left with little choice. Feeling the pressure and the unfolding strategy, Darius launched his attack. The intensity of the Battle of Gaugamela escalated when the Scythian cavalry, hailing from the Persian left, initiated a maneuver to outflank Alexander's far right. This move ignited a fierce cavalry duel between the two sides. The Macedonians, even though they were significantly outnumbered, showcased their discipline and strategic prowess. Through a combination of timely charges and the judicious use of reserves, they managed to stave off the Persian advances, a move critical to Alexander's broader battle strategy. Arrian's historical account paints a vivid picture of this phase. As the Scythian cavalry clashed with Alexander's front line, the Macedonian king continued his strategic shift to the right, moving beyond the area the Persians had prepped for battle. Sensing a potential disadvantage, Darius swiftly ordered his left wing to encircle and halt Alexander's progression. In response, Alexander dispatched Menidas and his Grecian mercenaries to counter this move. However, they soon found themselves overwhelmed by a fierce combined force of Scythians and Bactrians. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Alexander sent Aristo, leading the Paeonians and other Grecian auxiliaries, into the fray. The initial success of this move saw the Scythians retreating, but the Bactrians quickly regrouped, plunging the battlefield into a fierce cavalry skirmish. The Macedonians faced a daunting task, not just because of the enemy's numerical superiority, but also due to the heavy armor of the Scythian cavalry. Yet, with relentless assaults, they managed to disrupt and push back the Persian ranks. The battle's momentum shifted decisively in favor of the Greeks with the timely intervention of Achaemenid and his prodromoi, possibly the last Macedonian reserve in that part of the battlefield. But by this juncture, the true fate of the battle was being sealed elsewhere, in the heart of the battlefield, under Alexander's direct command. Arrian further describes the climax of this engagement. The Persian forces, in their attempt to surround the Macedonian wing, were thrown into chaos by a fierce charge led by Achaemenid. This resulted in a rapid Persian retreat, with the pursuing Macedonians cutting down their adversaries with ruthless efficiency. In a desperate bid to turn the tide of the battle, Darius unleashed his chariots, directing them towards the troops under Alexander's direct command. However, this assault was met with fierce resistance. The Agrianians, skilled javelin throwers positioned ahead of the companion cavalry, intercepted many of these chariots, neutralizing them before they could reach the main lines. The few chariots that managed to penetrate this initial defense were met with a clever Macedonian tactic. The Macedonian line strategically opened their ranks, creating pathways that allowed the chariots to pass through without causing any harm. Once these chariots were within the Macedonian formation, they were swiftly dealt with. The hypaspists, elite infantrymen, along with the armed attendants of the cavalry, converged on these chariots, ensuring none of the Persian charioteers posed any further threat. As the battle raged on, a strategic shift began to unfold. While the Persians aggressively pushed towards the Greek flanks, Alexander meticulously began to reposition his rear guard. Methodically disengaging his elite companion cavalry, he readied them for a pivotal strike. Reinforcing this formation were the Guards Brigade and any Phalanx battalions he could extract from the ongoing melee. With precision, Alexander organized these units into a massive wedge formation, positioning himself at the forefront, ready to lead the decisive charge. The Persian infantry, engaged in fierce combat with the Macedonian phalanxes at the center, found themselves ill-prepared to counter this new threat. With impeccable timing, Alexander's wedge formation thundered into the already strained Persian center. The impact was devastating. Darius' royal guard and the Greek mercenaries in Persian service were overwhelmed. The situation became so dire that Darius himself faced the risk of being encircled. Modern interpretations, largely based on Arrian's writings, suggest that at this critical juncture, Darius, sensing the imminent collapse of his center, chose to flee, triggering a cascading retreat among his troops. Arrian vividly describes this turning point. The battlefield was briefly consumed by intense close-quarters combat. But as Alexander's cavalry, led by the king himself, fiercely engaged the Persians, driving their spears into the faces of their adversaries, and the formidable Macedonian phalanx, with its dense formation and long pikes, pressed forward, the combined might and ferocity of the Macedonian assault overwhelmed Darius. Already gripped by anxiety, the Persian king became the first to retreat, setting off a wave of panic and flight among his ranks. At this pivotal moment in the battle, Alexander faced a crucial decision. He had the opportunity to chase down Darius, potentially ending the war with a single decisive action. However, urgent messages from Parmenion, his trusted general on the left flank, reached him. These messages, which some historians like Callisthenes would later use to cast doubt on Parmenion's capabilities, painted a grim picture. Parmenion's forces were seemingly encircled by the Persian right-wing cavalry and were under intense pressure, facing attacks from all directions. Faced with this dilemma, Alexander had to choose between pursuing Darius, potentially ending the war but risking the loss of his army, or rushing to aid Parmenion, ensuring the safety of his forces but allowing Darius to escape into the nearby mountains. Prioritizing the safety of his troops, Alexander chose the latter, deciding to assist Parmenion first and pursue Darius later. Meanwhile, as the Macedonians held their ground on the left, a significant gap emerged between their left and center formations. This was due to Simmia's brigade of Pezzeteroi, who couldn't keep pace with Alexander's aggressive charge, being heavily engaged themselves. Seizing this opportunity, the combined Persian and Indian cavalry at the center, led by Darius, broke through. But instead of exploiting this breach to attack the vulnerable Macedonian rear, they were lured by the prospect of plunder and headed straight for the Macedonian camp. Their intent was also to rescue the Queen Mother, Sisygambis, but she declined their offer. These raiders soon found themselves under attack by the Macedonian reserve Phalanx, which caught them off guard during their looting spree. Arrian provides a vivid account of the subsequent events, describing it as the most intense phase of the battle. Alexander and his elite companion cavalry clashed fiercely with the Persian right-wing cavalry, which comprised Indians, Parthians, and the most valiant Persian divisions. They were desperately trying to break free and escape. This brutal engagement saw the loss of 60 of Alexander's companions, with key figures like Hephaestion, Cenas, and Menidas sustaining injuries. Despite these setbacks, Alexander emerged victorious. Observing the tide turning, Mazias began to withdraw his forces, much like Bessus had done on the other flank. However, the Persian retreat soon turned chaotic as the Thessalian cavalry and other Macedonian units launched a relentless pursuit, driving their adversaries into disarray. Following the climactic battle, Parmenion took charge of securing the Persian baggage train, ensuring the spoils of war were safely in Macedonian hands. Meanwhile, Alexander, accompanied by his elite bodyguard, set out in pursuit of Darius. The aftermath of the battle saw the Macedonians enriched with a bounty of 4,000 talents, the personal chariot and bow of the Persian king, and the prized war elephants. This battle marked a significant victory for Alexander and a devastating blow to the Persians. Despite the overwhelming defeat, Darius managed to evade capture, escaping on horseback with a small contingent of his forces. He was soon joined by the Bactrian cavalry, Bessus, a few survivors from the royal guard, and 2,000 Greek mercenaries. The vast Persian Empire now found itself bifurcated, with clear demarcations between its eastern and western territories. Darius, rallying the remnants of his army, delivered a speech outlining his plans to venture further east and muster another force to challenge Alexander. He anticipated that the Macedonians would set their sights on Babylon. Concurrently, he sent out letters to his eastern satraps, urging them to remain steadfast in their loyalty. However, the satraps had different plans. In a shocking turn of events, Bessus betrayed and assassinated Darius. When Alexander came upon the slain Darius, he was deeply affected. Despite their adversarial relationship, Alexander held a degree of respect for Darius. In a gesture of honor, he arranged for Darius to be buried with full ceremonial rites in Persepolis, the grand ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire. Consumed with rage over the treachery of Bessus, Alexander relentlessly pursued him, eventually capturing and executing him the subsequent year. Most of the remaining satraps, recognizing the changing tides, pledged their allegiance to Alexander and, in a show of magnanimity, he allowed them to retain their posts. With the demise of Darius, the illustrious Achaemenid Persian Empire is traditionally believed to have come to its conclusion. Thank you for watching this episode of History Uncovered. We journeyed through one of the most pivotal battles in ancient history, witnessing the strategies, valor, and the eventual fall of an empire. If you found this video informative and engaging, please like and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the past. Your support helps us bring history to life. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so that you never miss a new episode. As we close this chapter, the algorithm suggests another captivating tale from history for you. On the screen now is a video we believe you'll thoroughly enjoy. Check it out, and continue your journey through the annals of time with us.